the brain that won't switch off. Hello, and welcome. If you're here right now listening to this, there's a good chance you know what it feels like when your brain simply won't switch off. Maybe you've spent the entire day moving from one task to another, answering emails, solving problems, taking care of others, managing 100 small details that all seemed urgent at the time. And finally, when the day ends and you climb into bed, when the house grows quiet and the lights go dim, that's when it starts. The thinking, the wondering, the replaying of conversations from earlier today, or last week, or even years ago. Your body is tired. You can feel it. Your muscles are heavy, your eyes want to close. But your mind is still going, still processing, still standing guard. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. You see, there's a name for this kind of brain. Scientists and sleep researchers call it the watchman brain. And people who have this type of brain often share something called the dolphin sleep chronotype. Now, let's talk about dolphins for a moment. Real dolphins, the ones swimming in the ocean. Dolphins have one of the most fascinating sleep patterns in the entire animal kingdom. When a dolphin sleeps, only half of its brain rests at a time. One hemisphere stays awake, alert, watching for danger, while the other half sleeps. Then they switch. This is called unihemispheric sleep, and it keeps them safe. It keeps them breathing. It keeps them alive in an environment where letting your guard down completely could be dangerous. And in a way, your brain might be doing something similar. Not literally, of course. You're not a dolphin. Both halves of your brain do sleep. But if you have a dolphin chronotype, if you have that watchman brain, then some part of your nervous system seems to believe that it needs to stay vigilant, to stay on guard, to keep watching, even when there's nothing to watch for, even when you're safe in your bed, even when the doors are locked and the world is quiet. This isn't your fault. It's not a failure of willpower or discipline. It's not because you're bad at sleeping, or because you're doing something wrong. It's simply the way your brain is wired, the way your nervous system has learned to operate. People with a dolphin sleep chronotype are often light sleepers. The smallest sound can wake them. A shift in temperature, a change in the light, their partner rolling over, the house settling, things that other people sleep right through, you notice. And it's not just about waking up easily. It's about never quite sinking into that deep, restorative sleep in the first place. You might spend 8 hours in bed, but wake up feeling like you only got 4 or 5 hours of actual rest. Your sleep is fragmented, broken into pieces. You drift off, then surface again. Drift off, then surface again. Over and over through the night. And then there are the thoughts. Oh, the thoughts. For people with a watchman brain, bedtime often becomes the time when the mind suddenly decides to bring up everything you've been too busy to think about during the day. That conversation you had with your coworker that felt a little off. The email you need to send tomorrow. The thing you forgot to add to your grocery list. Whether you locked the back door. Whether you said the wrong thing at dinner. Whether that person was upset with you. What you need to do next week. Next month. Next year. The thoughts come tumbling in, one after another, like an avalanche you can't stop. You try to push them away. You tell yourself, I'll think about this tomorrow. But the thoughts don't listen. They keep coming, circling, repeating, getting louder. This is rumination. This is overthinking. And for the watchman brain, it's not a choice, It's a pattern, a deeply ingrained pattern that your nervous system has learned. Maybe you've tried everything: meditation apps, breathing exercises, herbal teas, sleeping pills, white noise, blackout curtains, going to bed earlier, going to bed later. And sometimes these things help a little, but they don't fix the core problem. Because the core problem isn't that you don't know how to relax. The core problem is that your brain doesn't believe it's safe to relax. Somewhere deep in your nervous system, there's a part of you that has decided that vigilance is necessary, that watching is necessary, that staying alert, even just a little bit, is what keeps you safe. And so even when your body is exhausted, even when you desperately want to sleep, that watchman part of your brain stays on duty, listening, scanning, waiting, just in case. If you have this kind of brain, you might have felt this way for as long as you can remember. You might have been the child who couldn't fall asleep at sleepovers, the teenager who lay awake at night worrying about things that hadn't even happened yet, the adult who drinks coffee just to get through the day because sleep never quite does its job. And after years of this, after years of not sleeping well, you might start to feel broken, like something is wrong with you, like everyone else got the manual for how to sleep, and you somehow missed it. But here's what I want you to know, right now, as you're listening to this. You are not broken. Your brain is doing exactly what it thinks it needs to do to keep you safe. It's just working a little too hard, protecting you from dangers that aren't really there. And the beautiful thing is, you can teach it something new. You can help your watchman brain learn that it's okay to rest, that it's safe to let go, that you don't need to stay on guard through the night. Not all at once. Not tonight, necessarily, but gradually, gently, with patience and understanding. That's what we're going to explore together. Not how to force your brain to sleep, not how to fight against your nature or override your nervous system, but how to work with your watchman brain, how to soothe it, how to help it feel safe enough to finally, truly rest. So take a breath, a slow, gentle breath. You're here. You're safe. And for the next couple of hours, you don't need to watch for anything. You don't need to solve anything. You don't need to remember anything, or plan anything, or worry about anything. You can just be. And maybe, just maybe, your watchman brain can begin to relax too. Let's begin. What makes a dolphin a dolphin? So, what exactly makes someone a dolphin? What is it about this particular sleep chronotype that sets it apart from the others? Let's take a moment to really understand this, because when you recognize yourself in these patterns, when you see your own experience reflected back at you, something shifts. You realize you're not strange. You're not alone. You're simply a dolphin. And dolphins have their own unique way of moving through the world. The first thing to know about dolphin sleepers, the thing that defines them most clearly, is that they are incredibly light sleepers. Remarkably light. If you're a dolphin, you probably know this already. You've lived it. But let me paint the picture anyway, because sometimes it helps to hear your experience described, to know that someone understands. When you're a dolphin sleeper, the world doesn't stop being loud just because you close your eyes. A car door closing 3 houses away can pull you out of sleep. The refrigerator humming in the kitchen. A partner breathing just a little differently than usual. The cat walking across the floor. A neighbor's television through the wall. The wind picking up outside. a branch tapping against the window, sounds that other people, the bears and the lions and the wolves of the world, sleep right through without even stirring. These sounds reach you. They register. They wake you. And it's not just sound. Light sneaks through the curtains. Just the smallest sliver of street light or early morning sun. And suddenly you're aware. Your eyes might still be closed, but you're awake. Your brain has noticed. Temperature changes too. The room gets a little too warm, and you're kicking off blankets. A little too cool, and you're pulling them back up. Then too warm again. Then too cool. Each adjustment brings you closer to wakefulness, further from that deep, uninterrupted sleep that seems to come so easily to others. Even movement can do it. Your partner shifts position. The mattress moves slightly. And just like that, you're aware again. Awake again. Floating up from whatever shallow depth of sleep you'd managed to reach. This is what it means to be a light sleeper. Your sensory threshold, the level at which stimuli register in your awareness, is set remarkably low. Your nervous system is tuned to pick up signals that other people's brains simply filter out during sleep. It's like you're sleeping with the volume turned up, with the sensitivity increased, with all your receivers still partially switched on. And this brings us to the second hallmark of the Dolphin chronotype: irregular, scattered sleep patterns. If you're a dolphin, your sleep probably doesn't follow a neat, predictable schedule. It's not a smooth, straight line from bedtime to morning. It's more like a dotted line, or maybe a series of islands scattered across the night. You might have trouble falling asleep in the first place. You lie down at 10 o'clock, let's say, with every intention of sleeping. Your body is in bed. Your eyes are closed. But your mind is still running, still active, still online. Maybe you fall asleep eventually, at 11, or midnight, or 1 in the morning. But even once you do finally drift off, staying asleep is another challenge entirely. You might sleep for an hour or two, then wake up, completely awake, as if it's morning, even though it's only 1:30 in the morning. You check the clock. You realize you have hours left before you need to be up. You close your eyes again and try to return to sleep. Sometimes it works. Sometimes you drift back off after 20 minutes or an hour. Sometimes you lie there until 3, then 4, then 5 in the morning, and sleep finally returns just before your alarm goes off. Or maybe your pattern is different. Maybe you fall asleep relatively quickly, but then wake up every 90 minutes like clockwork. Surface. Check the time. Roll over. Try to sink back down. Surface again. Over and over through the night. There's no consistency to it. Some nights are better than others, but there's rarely a stretch of time where you think, yes, my sleep is finally fixed. Because that's not how dolphin sleep works. Dolphin sleep is unpredictable, fragmented, broken into pieces. And this leads directly to the third characteristic. Dolphins often sleep less than the recommended 7 to 8 hours. Now, sleep scientists will tell you that most adults need somewhere between 7 and 9 hours of sleep per night for optimal functioning. That's the general recommendation. That's what the research shows. But if you're a dolphin, you might look at that number and laugh. Or cry. Because 7 to 8 hours of actual sleep, uninterrupted, restorative sleep, that might feel like an impossible dream. You might spend 8 hours in bed. You might even spend 9 or 10 hours in bed, desperately trying to get enough rest. But the actual amount of quality sleep you get, the time you spend in deep sleep, in REM sleep, in truly restorative unconsciousness, might only add up to 5 hours. Or 6. Sometimes less. Because you're not sleeping those 8 hours. You're lying in bed for 8 hours. There's a difference. And during that time, you're drifting in and out, hovering in that shallow, fragile state between waking and sleeping, aware enough to hear the sounds, aware enough to have half-formed thoughts, aware enough that when morning comes, you don't feel rested. You feel tired, still tired, always a little bit tired. So what do many dolphins do? They nap. They find pockets of rest during the day whenever they can. A 20-minute nap on the couch during lunch. A brief rest after work before dinner. Closing their eyes for just a few minutes in the car, in an empty conference room. Anywhere they can steal a moment of quietness. These naps aren't luxurious indulgences. They're survival strategies. They're the way dolphins try to make up for the sleep they didn't get at night. The way they patch together enough rest to function. But even the naps don't always work. Because remember, you're a light sleeper. So even during the day, even when you're exhausted, fully relaxing into deep sleep is difficult. The world is too loud, too bright, too stimulating. And so you move through life in this state of chronic underrest. Not quite fully awake. Not quite fully asleep. Somewhere in between. This is where we arrive at perhaps the most challenging aspect of being a dolphin sleeper. Chronic insomnia, or fragmented sleep, is common. Not occasional. Not rare. Common. For many dolphins, poor sleep isn't something that happens once in a while when they're stressed or sick. It's the baseline. It's the normal state of affairs. It's what every night looks like, or nearly every night, month after month, year after year. Insomnia becomes a companion, an unwelcome one, but a familiar presence nonetheless. You know what it feels like to lie awake at 2 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, wondering if you'll ever fall back asleep. You know the frustration of being exhausted, but unable to rest. You know the fog that settles over your brain after too many nights of broken sleep. And over time, this can start to affect everything. Your mood, your energy, your ability to concentrate, your patience with others, your enjoyment of life. Because sleep is foundational. It's the thing that allows everything else to work properly. When you don't sleep well, when you haven't slept well for a long time, the world starts to feel heavier, harder, more overwhelming. Small tasks feel monumental. Decisions feel impossible. Joy feels muted. And you might start to wonder if this is just who you are now. The tired version of yourself. The version who can't quite keep up. The version who drinks too much coffee and cancels plans because you're just too exhausted. But here's what I want you to understand. Being a dolphin, having this chronotype, this watchman brain, this light-sleeping, easily woken pattern of fragmented rest nervous system, it comes with real challenges. That's undeniable. But it's not a life sentence of suffering. It's not an unfixable problem. It's simply information. It's data about how your particular brain and body work. And once you understand that, once you stop fighting against your nature and start working with it, things can begin to change. You are a dolphin. That's your sleep character. That's your chronotype. And like real dolphins in the ocean, you have your own rhythms, your own needs, your own way of navigating rest. The goal isn't to turn you into a bear, or a lion, or a wolf. The goal isn't to force your brain into someone else's sleep pattern. The goal is to help your dolphin brain feel safe enough to rest more deeply. To teach your nervous system that it doesn't always need to stay on watch. To create the conditions where fragmented sleep becomes less fragmented, where light sleep becomes deeper, where the hours you spend in bed actually restore you. This is possible, not because you'll suddenly become someone different, but because you'll learn to work with who you are. So if you recognize yourself in this description, if you've nodded along to every word thinking, yes, that's me, that's exactly me, then welcome. You're in the right place. You're a dolphin. And together, we're going to help you find your way to calmer waters. The watchman brain personality. Now let's talk about something fascinating, something that goes deeper than just sleep patterns. Because being a dolphin isn't only about how you sleep. It's about who you are, how you think, how you move through the world, how you process everything around you. Your sleep and your personality, they're not separate things. They're connected, woven together, two sides of the same coin. And when you understand this connection, when you see how your watchman brain shapes not just your nights, but your entire way of being, suddenly so much starts to make sense. So let's explore the watchman brain personality. Let's look at who you might be, beyond just someone who doesn't sleep well. First, and this might surprise you, or maybe it won't, people with watchman brains are often remarkably intelligent. Sharp, quick, analytical. If you're a dolphin sleeper, there's a good chance you're someone who thinks deeply about things, who notices patterns, who makes connections that others miss. Your mind doesn't just skim the surface, it dives down. It explores. It questions. You might be the person at work who catches the error in the spreadsheet that everyone else overlooked. The one who remembers the small detail from a conversation 3 weeks ago that turns out to be important now. The one who can look at a complex problem and see not just what's happening, but why it's happening and what might happen next. This is the gift of the analytical mind, the detail-oriented brain, and many dolphins have this in abundance. You're a problem solver. Give you a puzzle, a challenge, a situation that needs untangling, and your brain lights up. It wants to figure it out. It wants to understand how all the pieces fit together. It wants to find the solution. In many ways, this makes you incredibly capable, valuable, the kind of person others rely on when things get complicated. But here's the thing about having a brain that's this active, this engaged, this good at processing information. It doesn't really know how to turn off. That same analytical mind that serves you so well during the day, that solves problems and catches details and thinks 3 steps ahead. That mind doesn't suddenly become quiet and still just because it's bedtime. No, it keeps going. It keeps analyzing. It keeps problem solving. Except now, instead of working on actual problems that need solving, it might start working on hypothetical problems, future problems, problems that don't even exist yet. It starts running scenarios, planning for contingencies, thinking through what could go wrong and how you'd handle it if it did. This is where anxiety often enters the picture. Not everyone with a dolphin chronotype experiences anxiety, but many do. And if you're one of them, you understand exactly what this feels like. Anxiety and the watchman brain are close companions. Because anxiety, at its core, is about anticipation, about scanning for threats, about trying to stay one step ahead of danger. And that's precisely what your brain is already wired to do. Your nervous system is more vigilant than most, more alert, more attuned to potential problems. And while this can be protective, while it can help you avoid actual dangers and navigate complex situations, it can also mean that your brain finds threats even when they're not really there. You might worry about things that haven't happened yet, things that might never happen, things that are statistically unlikely but feel absolutely possible in the quiet darkness of 3 in the morning. Did you say the wrong thing in that meeting? Is that person upset with you? What if you forget something important tomorrow? What if that project doesn't go well? What if? The questions spiral. The worries multiply. And your watchman brain, which is just trying to keep you safe, ends up keeping you awake instead. Perfectionism often lives here too. If you have a watchman brain, you might find that you hold yourself to incredibly high standards. You want to get things right. Not just right, perfect, complete, flawless. You review your work multiple times. You double-check, triple-check. You think about how you could have done something better, even after it's already done and gone well. This isn't vanity. This isn't arrogance. This is your brain's way of trying to control an uncontrollable world. If you can just be perfect enough, careful enough, thorough enough, then maybe nothing will go wrong. Maybe you'll be safe. But of course, perfection is impossible. And so you're left with this constant, low-level sense that you could have done more, should have done more, didn't quite measure up, even when objectively you did just fine. And all of this, the analysis, the problem-solving, the anxiety, the perfectionism, it all stems from the same root. Over-vigilant thinking. Your brain is always scanning, always watching, always monitoring your environment, your circumstances, yourself. It's like having a security system that's set to maximum sensitivity. Every little movement triggers an alert. Every shadow might be an intruder. Every sound needs to be investigated. This is exhausting, because unlike an actual security system that can be turned off or adjusted, your brain doesn't come with a simple off switch. It just keeps scanning, keeps watching, keeps being vigilant, even when you're safe, even when everything is fine, even when there's nothing that actually requires your attention or concern. And this vigilance, this constant state of alertness, it extends beyond your internal world into how you experience your external environment as well. People with watchman brains tend to be highly sensitive to their surroundings. You notice things, everything, the flickering of fluorescent lights that others don't even register, the hum of electronics, the feeling of certain fabrics against your skin, the temperature of the room, the smell of someone's perfume 3 rows away. Strong smells, bright lights, loud noises, crowds, chaos. These things can be overwhelming. Not just uncomfortable, truly overwhelming. They flood your nervous system with input, and your brain has to process all of it, filter all of it, manage all of it. Where someone else might walk into a busy restaurant and simply sit down and relax, you might walk in and immediately notice the music is too loud, the lighting is harsh, there's a draft from the air conditioning. The people at the next table are talking very loudly, and the combination of all these things makes it hard to focus on the conversation you're trying to have. This isn't you being difficult or high maintenance. This is your nervous system doing exactly what it's designed to do, scanning the environment for potential threats or discomfort. The problem is, it's scanning constantly, and it's finding threats everywhere, even in places that are objectively safe. A busy environment isn't actually dangerous, but to your watchman brain, it might feel like too much, too stimulating, too unpredictable, too many variables to monitor and manage. And so you might find yourself preferring quieter settings, calmer environments, predictable situations where you can relax at least a little bit. This can affect your social life in interesting ways. From the outside, if people don't know you well, you might appear reserved, distant, maybe even aloof or unfriendly. You might not be the first person to speak up in a group. You might hang back at parties, observing more than participating. You might prefer one-on-one conversations to large gatherings. You might leave social events early, claiming you're tired. And you are tired because processing all that stimulation is genuinely exhausting. But here's what people don't see: the intense mental activity happening beneath that calm, reserved exterior. Because you're not distant or disengaged at all. You're incredibly engaged. You're listening carefully to what people are saying. You're noticing body language, tone of voice, subtle shifts in mood. You're thinking about what they said and what it might mean and how you should respond. You're processing everything. Your mind is working at full capacity, analyzing the social landscape, trying to navigate it correctly, watching for signs that you're doing it right or doing it wrong. This is the paradox of the watchman brain personality. You appear quiet on the outside, but you're remarkably loud on the inside. You might seem like you're not paying attention, when in fact you're paying attention to everything. You might look relaxed, when internally you're anything but. And this gap between how you appear and how you actually feel can be lonely sometimes, because people might not understand what's really happening for you. They might misread your quietness as disinterest, your need for space as rejection, your sensitivity as weakness. But it's not weakness. It's simply the way your particular nervous system is calibrated. You have a brain that notices more, processes more, thinks more deeply, feels more intensely than many other people's brains do. This comes with challenges, absolutely. We've talked about many of them. But it also comes with gifts. Your intelligence, your insight, your ability to see what others miss, your capacity for deep thought and careful analysis, your creativity, which often flourishes in minds that make unusual connections and think in complex ways. These are not small things. These are valuable, beautiful aspects of who you are. The goal, the hope, the intention behind everything we're doing here together tonight isn't to eliminate your watchman brain, isn't to turn you into someone fundamentally different. It's to help your watchman brain find balance, to help it understand that it doesn't need to be on guard quite so intensely, quite so constantly, that there's a middle ground between complete vigilance and complete vulnerability, that you can be intelligent and analytical and detail-oriented, without also being anxious and sleepless and exhausted, that you can notice things and care about quality and think deeply, while also allowing yourself to rest, that your sensitivity, your awareness, your careful attention to the world, these can exist alongside peace, alongside calm, alongside deep, restorative sleep. You don't need to change who you are. You just need to teach your brain that it's safe to soften a little, to release a little, to trust that you don't need to watch quite so carefully through the night. Because you are safe. Right now, in this moment, as you listen to these words, you are safe. Your watchman brain has kept you alive and functioning and moving through the world. It's done its job remarkably well. But tonight, just for tonight, it can rest. And so can you. But of course, perfection is impossible. And so you're left with this constant, low-level sense that you could have done more. Should have done more. Didn't quite measure up, even when objectively, you did just fine. And all of this, the analysis, the problem-solving, the anxiety, the perfectionism, it all stems from the same root. Overvigilant thinking. Your brain is always scanning, always watching, always monitoring your environment, your circumstances, yourself. It's like having a security system that's set to maximum sensitivity. Every little movement triggers an alert. Every shadow might be an intruder. Every sound needs to be investigated. This is exhausting. Because unlike an actual security system that can be turned off or adjusted, your brain doesn't come with a simple off switch. It just keeps scanning, keeps watching, keeps being vigilant, even when you're safe, even when everything is fine, even when there's nothing that actually requires your attention or concern. And this vigilance, this constant state of alertness, it extends beyond your internal world into how you experience your external environment as well. People with watchman brains tend to be highly sensitive to their surroundings. You notice things, everything, the flickering of fluorescent lights that others don't even register, the hum of electronics, the feeling of certain fabrics against your skin, the temperature of the room, the smell of someone's perfume 3 rows away. Strong smells, bright lights, loud noises, crowds, chaos. These things can be overwhelming. Not just uncomfortable, truly overwhelming. They flood your nervous system with input, and your brain has to process all of it, filter all of it, manage all of it. Where someone else might walk into a busy restaurant and simply sit down and relax, you might walk in and immediately notice the music is too loud, the lighting is harsh, there's a draft from the air conditioning, the people at the next table are talking very loudly, and the combination of all these things makes it hard to focus on the conversation you're trying to have. This isn't you being difficult or high maintenance. This is your nervous system doing exactly what it's designed to do, scanning the environment for potential threats or discomfort. The problem is, it's scanning constantly, and it's finding threats everywhere, even in places that are objectively safe. A busy environment isn't actually dangerous, but to your watchman brain, it might feel like too much. Too stimulating, too unpredictable, too many variables to monitor and manage. And so you might find yourself preferring quieter settings, calmer environments, predictable situations where you can relax at least a little bit. This can affect your social life in interesting ways. From the outside, if people don't know you well, you might appear reserved, distant, maybe even aloof or unfriendly. You might not be the first person to speak up in a group. You might hang back at parties, observing more than participating. You might prefer one-on-one conversations to large gatherings. You might leave social events early, claiming you're tired. And you are tired because processing all that stimulation is genuinely exhausting. But here's what people don't see. The intense mental activity happening beneath that calm, reserved exterior. Because you're not distant or disengaged at all. You're incredibly engaged. You're listening carefully to what people are saying. You're noticing body language, tone of voice, subtle shifts in mood. You're thinking about what they said and what it might mean and how you should respond. You're processing everything. Your mind is working at full capacity, analyzing the social landscape, trying to navigate it correctly, watching for signs that you're doing it right or doing it wrong. This is the paradox of the watchman brain personality. You appear quiet on the outside, but you're remarkably loud on the inside. You might seem like you're not paying attention, when in fact you're paying attention to everything. You might look relaxed, when internally you're anything but. And this gap between how you appear and how you actually feel can be lonely sometimes, because people might not understand what's really happening for you. They might misread your quietness as disinterest, your need for space as rejection, your sensitivity as weakness. But it's not weakness. It's simply the way your particular nervous system is calibrated. You have a brain that notices more, processes more, thinks more deeply, feels more intensely than many other people's brains do. This comes with challenges, absolutely. We've talked about many of them, but it also comes with gifts. Your intelligence, your insight, your ability to see what others miss, your capacity for deep thought and careful analysis, your creativity, which often flourishes in minds that make unusual connections and think in complex ways. These are not small things. These are valuable, beautiful aspects of who you are. The goal, the hope, the intention behind everything we're doing here together tonight isn't to eliminate your watchman brain, isn't to turn you into someone fundamentally different. It's to help your watchman brain find balance, to help it understand that it doesn't need to be on guard quite so intensely, quite so constantly, that there's a middle ground between complete vigilance and complete vulnerability, that you can be intelligent and analytical and detail-oriented, without also being anxious and sleepless and exhausted, that you can notice things and care about quality and think deeply, while also allowing yourself to rest, that your sensitivity, your awareness, your careful attention to the world, these can exist alongside peace, alongside calm, alongside deep, restorative sleep. You don't need to change who you are. You just need to teach your brain that it's safe to soften a little, to release a little, to trust that you don't need to watch quite so carefully through the night, because you are safe. Right now, in this moment, as you listen to these words, you are safe. Your watchman brain has kept you alive and functioning and moving through the world. It's done its job remarkably well. But tonight, just for tonight, it can rest. And so can you. But there's nothing wrong with you. Your brain just operates on a different timeline. The morning continues. 8 o'clock. 9 o'clock. You're moving through your day, doing what needs to be done, but still feeling like you're not quite there. Not quite yourself. And then, somewhere around mid to late morning, something starts to shift. Maybe it's 10 o'clock. Maybe 10:30. Maybe closer to 11. But gradually, almost without you noticing at first, your brain begins to wake up. Really wake up. The fog starts to lift. Your thoughts become clearer, sharper, faster. Tasks that felt impossible an hour ago suddenly feel manageable. You can focus now. You can think. You can process information without it feeling like you're wading through mud. This is when your energy starts to rise, when your productivity kicks in, when you finally feel like yourself. Late morning into early afternoon. This is often the sweet spot for dolphins. Roughly 10 in the morning until maybe 2 or 3 in the afternoon. This is when you do your best work, when your mind is most clear, when your creativity and problem-solving abilities are at their peak. If you have control over your schedule, this is when you want to tackle the important stuff, the complex projects, the decisions that require careful thought, the work that demands your full attention and intelligence, because this is when you have it. This is when your dolphin brain is finally online, fully operational, ready to engage. You might feel almost normal during these hours, almost like a regular person who sleeps well and wakes up refreshed. Almost like you've finally caught up to everyone else who started their day hours ago. But here's the thing. Even though you're functioning well now, even though your mind is clear, you're still tired. Underneath the mental clarity, underneath the ability to focus and work and think, there's a baseline exhaustion that never quite goes away. Because you didn't sleep well last night. And you probably didn't sleep well the night before that. Or the night before that. So even in your most productive hours, even when you're doing good work and feeling relatively capable, there's a part of you that's running on fumes. That's compensating. That's working harder than it should have to maintain what feels like normal functioning. This is the exhausting paradox of being a dolphin. You can perform. You can show up. You can do what needs to be done. But you're doing it while chronically underrested. While your brain is never quite getting the deep, restorative sleep it truly needs. And over time, this takes a toll. The afternoon continues. 2 o'clock. 3 o'clock. 4 o'clock. Your energy might hold steady for a while, or it might start to dip again. It depends on the day, on how much sleep you managed to get, on how demanding your day has been. Some dolphins get a second wind in the late afternoon or evening. Others start to fade, crashing hard as the day wears on, desperate for rest, but knowing that even when bedtime comes, sleep won't come easily. Evening arrives. You make dinner, or pick something up, or skip eating because you're too tired. You try to relax. Watch something. Read something. Scroll through your phone. But your brain is starting to spin up again. Even though you're tired, even though your body is exhausted, your mind is getting busy, starting to think about tomorrow, or yesterday, or next week, or that thing you forgot to do, or that conversation you keep replaying. The overthinking begins, and you know what's coming. You know that in a few hours, you'll climb into bed, and the real struggle will start. The lying awake, the fragmented sleep, the waking up multiple times, the never quite sinking into deep rest. You might dread it, or you might just accept it as inevitable. This is your life. This is your rhythm. Unpredictable sleep times, difficult mornings, mental clarity that doesn't arrive until late morning, productivity in a narrow window, exhaustion underneath everything, and then the cycle begins again, day after day after day. This is what the 24-hour rhythm feels like when you're a dolphin. It's not smooth. It's not consistent. It's not easy. But it's yours. It's the pattern your particular nervous system follows. And once you can see it clearly, once you understand that this is how your chronotype expresses itself, you can start to work with it instead of against it. You can stop trying to force yourself to be a morning person. You can stop feeling guilty about not being productive at 8 in the morning when your brain simply isn't ready yet. You can structure your day around your actual energy patterns instead of fighting them. Protect those late morning hours for your most important work. Give yourself permission to move slowly in the early morning. Be gentle with yourself in the evening when the overthinking starts. And most importantly, you can start to address the root of all of this. The fragmented sleep. The watchman brain that won't let you rest deeply. Because when you improve your sleep, even just a little bit, the entire 24-hour cycle starts to shift. The mornings become a little easier. The energy lasts a little longer. The exhaustion becomes a little less heavy. You don't need to become a different person. You don't need to change your chronotype. You just need to help your dolphin brain find its way to calmer, deeper waters. And that's exactly what we're here to do. So let's keep going. Let's keep exploring. Let's keep moving toward rest. Because you deserve it. You deserve to wake up feeling restored. You deserve mornings that don't feel like dragging yourself through quicksand. You deserve a day that doesn't require constant compensation for inadequate sleep. You deserve rest. Real rest. And together, we're going to help you find it. Why sleep is so hard for dolphins. Now, let's talk about why this is happening. Not just what it feels like to be a dolphin sleeper, but why your brain works this way. What's actually going on beneath the surface that makes sleep so difficult for you? Because when you understand the mechanism, when you see the science behind your struggles, it becomes less mysterious, less personal, less like a failure on your part. It's not that you're doing something wrong. It's that your brain is wired in a particular way. And that wiring creates specific challenges. So let's look at those challenges. Let's understand them. Let's make them less confusing and more clear. The first thing to understand is this. Dolphins often have what sleep scientists call a weak intrinsic sleep drive. Let's break that down, because it's important. Sleep drive, sometimes called sleep pressure, is the biological force that builds up in your body the longer you're awake. It's what makes you feel tired, what makes your eyelids heavy, what eventually pushes you towards sleep. For most people, sleep drive works in a fairly predictable way. You wake up in the morning, and your sleep drive is low. You're refreshed, alert, ready for the day. As the hours pass, as you move through your morning, your afternoon, your evening, sleep drive gradually builds. Gets stronger, gets heavier. By bedtime, after being awake for 15 or 16 hours, that sleep drive has accumulated enough that when you lie down and close your eyes, sleep comes. Your body is ready. Your brain is ready. The biological pressure to sleep is strong enough to override everything else. That's how it's supposed to work. But if you're a dolphin, your sleep drive doesn't work quite like that. It's weak, inconsistent, unreliable. You can be awake for 16 hours, exhausted, barely able to keep your eyes open. And yet when you lie down in bed, sleep doesn't come. The tiredness is there. You feel it in your body, in your heavy limbs, in your foggy mind. But it doesn't translate into actual sleep. It's like your brain has disconnected the signal. Feeling tired and falling asleep. These two things that should be directly linked, somehow aren't for you. You can be desperately tired without being able to sleep. This is one of the most frustrating aspects of being a dolphin, because you're doing everything right. You're tired. You're in bed. The lights are off. The room is quiet. All the conditions for sleep are present, but your brain doesn't respond the way it should. The sleep drive that's supposed to pull you under, it's just not strong enough, not consistent enough. So you lie there, tired but awake, exhausted but alert, and the hours tick by. Now, let's say you do eventually fall asleep. Maybe it takes an hour, maybe two, but finally, you drift off. What happens next is the second major challenge: frequent nighttime awakenings. We've talked about this already, but let's look at what it actually does to your sleep architecture. Because every time you wake up during the night, you're interrupting the natural progression your brain is supposed to move through. Sleep isn't just one solid block of unconsciousness. It's a cycle, a journey through different stages. You start in light sleep. Stage 1, Stage 2. Easy to wake from, not very restorative, but necessary as a transition. Then, if everything goes well, you sink deeper. Into Stage 3. Deep sleep. Slow wave sleep. This is where your body does its repair work, where your immune system strengthens, where physical restoration happens. And then, after cycling through deep sleep, you move into REM sleep. Rapid eye movement sleep. Dream sleep. This is where your brain processes emotions, consolidates memories, makes creative connections, works through psychological material. In a healthy night of sleep, you move through this cycle multiple times. Light sleep to deep sleep to REM, then back to light sleep and start again. For 5, maybe 6 cycles through the night, each one lasting roughly 90 minutes. But here's what happens when you're a dolphin and you wake up frequently. You might make it into light sleep, maybe even into the beginning of deep sleep. But before you can complete the cycle, before you can get the full restorative benefit, something wakes you up. A noise, a shift in temperature, a thought, your partner moving, your own anxiety, and you're pulled back to the surface, back to consciousness, or at least very light sleep. Then you have to start the process all over again. Drift off. Move through light sleep. Try to get to deep sleep. Maybe you make it, maybe you don't, but then you wake up again. Over and over through the night. What this means is that you're spending most of your sleep time in the lighter stages. You're not getting enough deep sleep. Not enough REM sleep. You're skimming the surface instead of diving deep. And those deep stages, those are the ones that matter most. Those are where the real restoration happens. Without enough deep sleep, your body doesn't fully recover. Your muscles don't repair properly. Your immune system doesn't get the support it needs. Your hormones don't regulate the way they should. Without enough REM sleep, your brain doesn't process emotions well, doesn't consolidate learning, doesn't clear out the mental clutter from the day. You're sleeping, technically, but you're not getting the quality of sleep your brain and body actually need. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for emotional regulation, decision-making, impulse control, it's one of the first things to suffer when you're sleep-deprived. It goes offline, essentially. Or at least, it doesn't function at full capacity. Meanwhile, your amygdala, the part of your brain that processes fear and emotional reactions, it becomes hyperactive when you don't sleep well. More reactive, more likely to perceive threats and respond with anxiety or stress. So you end up with less emotional control and more emotional reactivity. A terrible combination that makes everything feel harder. Focus becomes difficult. You sit down to work on something, and your mind wanders. You read the same paragraph 3 times and still don't absorb what it says. You forget what you were doing in the middle of doing it. This is brain fog. This is what chronic sleep deprivation does to cognitive function. And the cruel irony is that all of this, the tiredness, the fog, the mood issues, the difficulty concentrating, all of this makes it even harder to sleep the next night. Because now you're stressed about how tired you are, worried about how you're going to get through tomorrow, anxious about your performance at work or your ability to show up for your family, or whether you're falling behind on everything. And this brings us to perhaps the most insidious challenge of all, sleep anxiety. If you've struggled with sleep for a long time, if you've had years of difficult nights and exhausting days, you've probably developed some anxiety around sleep itself. Maybe you start to dread bedtime, the moment when you have to try to sleep and face the possibility, the likelihood, of another restless night. Maybe you look at your bed, and instead of feeling peaceful or relaxed, you feel tense. Because the bed has become associated not with rest, but with struggle, with lying awake, with frustration and failure. Maybe you start watching the clock, calculating how many hours of sleep you might get if you fall asleep right now, and then recalculating 10 minutes later, and 20 minutes later, and the calculation gets worse each time, which makes you more anxious, which makes it even harder to fall asleep. This is sleep anxiety, and it creates a vicious cycle that's incredibly difficult to break. You can't sleep, so you become anxious about sleep. The anxiety makes it harder to sleep, which makes you more anxious, which makes sleep even more elusive. Around and around it goes. Add to this the perfectionism that many dolphins carry. The feeling that you should be able to sleep properly, that there must be something you're doing wrong, that if you could just find the right technique or routine or supplement, you'd fix this. And you end up in a state of hyperarousal. Your nervous system is activated, alert, on guard. Even when you're lying in bed trying to rest, your body is in a state of physiological arousal. Your heart rate might be slightly elevated, your muscles slightly tense, your breathing slightly shallow. Your brain is producing more cortisol, the stress hormone, than it should be at night. It's producing less melatonin, the sleep hormone, than would be helpful. Everything is calibrated for wakefulness, not sleep. And this state, this pattern of hyperarousal and anxiety and perfectionism around sleep, it can lock insomnia into place, turn it from an occasional problem into a chronic condition. You're not just dealing with a weak sleep drive anymore. You're dealing with a nervous system that has learned to be activated at bedtime, a brain that has associated the bed with stress rather than rest. Breaking this pattern, it's not simple. It's not a matter of just deciding to relax or trying harder to sleep. But it is possible. Many dolphins find that certain tools can help. Melatonin, for instance. It's a supplement that mimics the natural sleep hormone your body produces. Taking it in the evening can sometimes help signal to your brain that it's time to sleep, especially if your own melatonin production is insufficient. Does it work for everyone? No. Does it fix everything? Definitely not. But for some dolphins, it provides a gentle nudge in the right direction. A little bit of support for a sleep drive that's naturally weak. Others find that strict sleep routines help. Going to bed at exactly the same time every night. Waking at exactly the same time every morning, even on weekends. creating a predictable pattern that the brain can eventually learn to follow, even if it doesn't come naturally. These routines, sleep hygiene practices, they can be useful, but they're also not a cure-all. Because remember, your challenge isn't that you don't know what good sleep habits are. Your challenge is that your brain is wired to be vigilant, to stay on guard, to resist the very thing you're trying to achieve. So yes, melatonin might help. Routines might help. But what helps most, what makes the biggest difference, is addressing the underlying state of your nervous system. Teaching your brain that it's safe to let go, that it doesn't need to maintain this constant state of hyperarousal, that the watchman can rest. This is the work we're doing together. Right now, in this moment, you're lying here listening, allowing your body to be still, allowing your mind to focus on something other than your worries, or your to-do list, or your calculations of how many hours of sleep you might get. You're practicing a different state, a calmer state, a state where your nervous system can begin to soften, to settle, to release some of that vigilance it's been holding onto so tightly. This won't fix everything overnight. Your sleep drive won't suddenly become strong. Your nighttime awakenings won't magically disappear. But with practice, with patience, with gentle, consistent attention to calming your nervous system, things can shift. The hyperarousal can decrease. The sleep anxiety can soften. The pattern can begin to change. You can sleep better. Not perfectly, but better. And better, when you've been struggling for so long, better is everything. So keep breathing. Keep listening. Keep allowing yourself to rest, even if sleep doesn't come right away. You're doing exactly what you need to do. The core goal, calming the watchman. We've covered a lot of ground so far. We've explored what it means to be a dolphin, what it feels like, why it's so hard, the science behind the struggle. And if you've been listening closely, you might have noticed something we haven't talked about yet. We haven't talked about techniques for forcing yourself to sleep. We haven't given you a list of things to try harder at. We haven't suggested that if you just follow the right steps in the right order, sleep will finally come. And that's intentional. Because here's the truth, the fundamental truth that changes everything once you really understand it. You cannot force sleep. You can't make it happen through willpower, or effort, or determination. Sleep isn't something you do. It's something that happens to you when the conditions are right. And for a dolphin, for someone with a watchman brain, those conditions aren't about trying harder. They're about trying less. They're about calming, softening, releasing, letting go. This is the core goal. Not to sleep harder, but to calm the system. Let's sit with that for a moment, because it's such a different approach from what you've probably tried before. Maybe you've spent years trying to fix your sleep, reading articles about sleep hygiene, buying special pillows and blackout curtains and white noise machines, taking supplements, following bedtime routines, doing everything the experts say you should do. And maybe some of those things helped a little. Maybe they made a small difference. But they didn't solve the problem, did they? Because they were all focused on the wrong goal. They were focused on making you sleep, on creating the perfect external conditions for sleep, on finding the right technique or product or routine that would finally unlock the door to good sleep. But your problem, the dolphin's problem, it's not about external conditions. It's not about whether your room is dark enough, or your mattress is comfortable enough, or your bedtime is consistent enough. Your problem is internal. Your problem is that your brain doesn't feel safe enough to sleep. Your watchman brain, that vigilant, careful, protective part of you, it's standing guard. It's on duty. It's monitoring and scanning and watching for threats. And as long as it's doing that, as long as it believes that vigilance is necessary, sleep will remain difficult. Fragmented. Insufficient. You can have the perfect bedroom setup, the perfect routine, the perfect supplements. But if your nervous system is in a state of arousal, if your brain is activated rather than calm, sleep won't come easily. So the goal isn't to create perfect conditions. The goal isn't to do more things or try harder or follow more rules. The goal is to calm your nervous system, to reduce the cognitive arousal that's keeping your brain alert and watchful, to help your watchman brain understand that it can rest. What does cognitive arousal mean? Let's make it concrete. Cognitive arousal is when your mind is active, busy, engaged, thinking, planning, worrying, analyzing, problem-solving. When your thoughts are moving quickly, jumping from one thing to another, unable to settle or slow down. It's the racing thoughts, the rumination, the mental chatter that starts up the moment you lie down to sleep. It's your brain going over your day, reviewing what happened, replaying conversations, thinking about what you need to do tomorrow. It's the worry spiral, the what-ifs, the scenarios and contingencies and possibilities. Cognitive arousal is a revved-up mind. And for dolphins, this is often the biggest obstacle to sleep. Your body might be tired. Your eyes might be heavy. But if your mind is aroused, if your thoughts are active and engaged, your nervous system interprets this as, "We're not safe to sleep yet. There's still work to be done. Still things to figure out. Still threats to monitor." And so it keeps you awake. Now here's what's important to understand. You can't just tell yourself to stop thinking. You can't command your mind to be quiet. That doesn't work. In fact, it usually makes things worse, because then you're thinking about not thinking, which is still thinking. The harder you try to force your mind to be quiet, the more activated it becomes. So instead of trying to control your thoughts, instead of fighting against the cognitive arousal, the approach is different. The approach is to create conditions in your nervous system that allow arousal to naturally decrease. To shift from a state of sympathetic activation, the fight or flight response, the alert and vigilant state, to a state of parasympathetic activation, the rest and digest response, the calm and peaceful state. This isn't something you do through effort. It's something you allow through softening. Think of it like this. Your nervous system is like a lake. When you're in a state of cognitive arousal, when your thoughts are racing and your mind is busy, the surface of the lake is choppy. There are waves, ripples, movement everywhere. You can't smooth out a choppy lake by trying to hold the water still. You can't force it to be calm, but you can stop creating the disturbance. You can stop throwing stones into the water, and gradually, naturally, the surface will settle. The waves will diminish. The water will become still. Your nervous system works the same way. When you stop feeding the arousal, when you stop engaging with the racing thoughts, stop trying to solve problems, stop reviewing and analyzing and worrying, the arousal naturally begins to decrease. Not immediately, not all at once, but gradually, gently. The waves settle, the mind quiets, the watchman brain begins to relax. This is what we're doing right now, actually. Right here, as you listen to these words. You're not trying to sleep. You're not forcing anything. You're simply lying here, listening, allowing your attention to rest on something calm and steady and soothing. And as you do that, as you give your mind something gentle to focus on instead of all the usual worries and thoughts and concerns, your nervous system begins to shift. The sympathetic activation decreases. The parasympathetic response increases. Your heart rate slows just a little. Your breathing deepens just a little. Your muscles release tension you didn't even know you were holding. This is calming the system. This is reducing cognitive arousal. And this is what makes sleep possible for a dolphin brain. Not forcing it, not trying harder, but creating the internal conditions where sleep can naturally emerge. Now, I want to be very clear about something. This doesn't mean you'll fall asleep instantly. This doesn't mean that by the end of this video, all your sleep problems will be solved. That's not realistic, and it's not the goal. The goal is simply to practice this state, to practice being calm, to practice allowing your nervous system to soften and settle. Because the more you practice this, the more familiar your brain becomes with this state of calm, the easier it becomes to access it when you need it. Your brain learns. It creates pathways. It remembers. Right now, your brain has a very strong pathway to arousal, to vigilance, to the watchman state. That pathway has been used thousands of times. It's well worn, easy to activate. Your brain goes there automatically, especially at night. But you can create a new pathway, a pathway to calm, a pathway to rest. And you create it by practicing, by repeatedly, gently, patiently bringing your nervous system into a state of parasympathetic activation, a state of safety and relaxation. Every time you do this, every time you listen to something like this, every time you practice calming techniques, every time you consciously choose to soften instead of tense, you're strengthening that new pathway. You're teaching your watchman brain that there's another option, that it doesn't always have to stand guard, that there are times when it's safe to rest. This is the work. This is the practice. This is what will, over time, make the difference. Not a perfect bedtime routine. Not the right supplement. Not forcing yourself to sleep. But calming the system. Reducing the arousal. Teaching the watchman to rest. So as you lie here now, listening to these words, let yourself soften just a little bit more. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to achieve anything. You don't even have to fall asleep. You just have to be here. Present. Breathing. Allowing your body to be heavy. Allowing your thoughts to drift without chasing them. Allowing your nervous system to settle, like ripples on water gradually becoming still. This is enough. This is exactly what you need to be doing. The watchman has been on duty for so long. It's tired too. It wants to rest, even if it doesn't quite know how yet. So we'll teach it. Gently, patiently, without force or pressure or expectation. We'll show it that rest is safe, that letting go is safe, that sleep, true, deep, restorative sleep, is possible, not because you're trying harder, but because you're finally allowing yourself to try less, to simply be, to simply rest, to simply let the watchman, finally, take a break. And in that space, in that soft, quiet, calm space, sleep can find you, not because you chased it, but because you created the conditions where it could arrive on its own. So breathe, soften, release. You're exactly where you need to be. Set up sleep earlier in the day. Now we're going to talk about something that might seem a little surprising at first. Something that doesn't seem like it should have anything to do with sleep, because it happens when you're awake, during the day, hours and hours before bedtime. But here's the thing about sleep, especially for a dolphin brain. It's not just about what you do at night. It's about what you do all day long. Sleep doesn't begin when you lie down in bed. It begins the moment you wake up. Everything you do from the time you open your eyes in the morning, it's all setting the stage for how you'll sleep that night. And for someone with a watchman brain, someone whose sleep is already fragile and unpredictable, paying attention to these daytime habits becomes even more important. So let's talk about how to set up sleep earlier in the day. How to create the conditions, starting from the moment you wake up, that will help your brain rest more easily when nighttime comes. The first thing, and this might be the hardest thing, especially after a terrible night, is to keep a fixed wake time every single day. Every day, even after a bad night. Even when you've barely slept. Even when every fiber of your being wants to stay in bed longer and try to catch up on the rest you missed. You wake up at the same time. I know this sounds cruel. Maybe even impossible. You're exhausted. You finally fell asleep at 4 in the morning, and now your alarm is going off at 6:30, and the thought of getting up feels unbearable. Wouldn't it be better to sleep in? To let your body rest a little longer? To try to recover some of that lost sleep? Intuitively, yes. It seems like that should help. But for a dolphin brain, it actually makes things worse. Here's why. Your body has an internal clock. Your circadian rhythm. It's controlled by a tiny cluster of cells in your brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. And it regulates when you feel alert and when you feel sleepy based on a roughly 24-hour cycle. For most people, this clock is fairly strong and consistent. But for dolphins, for people with fragmented sleep and weak sleep drive, the circadian rhythm tends to be more fragile, less stable, easier to disrupt. And one of the most disruptive things you can do is wake up at different times every day. When you sleep in on weekends, or after a bad night, or whenever you get the chance, you're essentially confusing your internal clock. You're sending mixed signals about when the day begins and when the night begins. Your brain can't establish a clear pattern. It doesn't know when to start building sleep drive, when to release melatonin, when to prepare for rest. So instead of helping, sleeping in actually makes your sleep more unpredictable, more irregular, harder to rely on. But when you wake up at the same time every day, even after a terrible night, you're giving your circadian rhythm a consistent anchor point, a reliable signal that says, this is when the day starts. This is when we're awake. And over time, not immediately, but gradually, your brain starts to organize itself around that signal. It learns that mornings happen at 6:30, or 7, or whatever time you choose, and it begins to prepare accordingly, to build sleep drive throughout the day, to release the right hormones at the right times. It creates stability where there was chaos, predictability where there was randomness. Does this mean you'll suddenly sleep perfectly? No, but it gives your fragile circadian rhythm something to hold on to, a structure to build around. And that structure, that consistency, it's one of the most powerful tools you have for improving sleep over time. So even when it's hard, even when you're exhausted, You get up at your regular wake time. You resist the temptation to sleep in. You trust that this consistency is helping, even if it doesn't feel like it in the moment. Now, once you're up, once you've dragged yourself out of bed despite the tiredness, the next step is to get daylight exposure. Actual daylight. Natural light. Sunlight on your face and in your eyes. This might seem like a small thing, insignificant, but it's not. It's actually incredibly powerful. Light is the primary signal that sets your circadian rhythm. More than anything else, more than food, more than exercise, more than routine, light tells your brain whether it's day or night. When bright light enters your eyes, particularly blue wavelength light like you get from the sun, it sends a signal to that internal clock we talked about. It says, it's daytime. We're awake. We're alert. And that signal, it does several important things. First, it suppresses melatonin production. Melatonin is the hormone that makes you sleepy, and you don't want it hanging around during the day. You want your brain to turn it off in the morning, so you can be alert and functional. Second, it starts a timer. Your brain takes note of when that bright light signal arrives, and roughly 14 to 16 hours later, it starts ramping up melatonin production again, preparing for sleep, getting ready for night. So if you get bright light at 7 in the morning, your brain knows to start getting sleepy around 9 or 10 at night. But if you never get that bright light signal, if you wake up in a dim room and immediately put on sunglasses and get in your car and go to a fluorescent-lit office and never step outside, your brain doesn't have a clear reference point. It doesn't know when day begins, and therefore, it doesn't know when night should begin either. Your circadian rhythm drifts, becomes uncertain, and your already weak sleep drive becomes even weaker. So here's what helps. Within the first hour of waking up, ideally within the first 30 minutes, get yourself outside. Step into natural daylight. You don't have to do anything elaborate. You don't need to exercise or meditate or have a whole morning routine out there. You just need to be outside, in the light, for 10 or 15 minutes. Maybe you have your coffee on the porch. Maybe you take a short walk around the block. Maybe you just stand in your yard and look at the sky. The specific activity doesn't matter. What matters is the light reaching your eyes. Bright, natural, outdoor light. And if you can't get outside, if the weather is terrible or your schedule doesn't allow it, at least open your curtains. Let natural light into your space. Sit near a window. Give your brain as much light exposure as you can manage. This simple act, getting light in the morning, it helps anchor your circadian rhythm. It tells your body, clearly and unmistakably, that the day has begun. And when your body knows when the day begins, it has a much better chance of knowing when the day should end. Now, while you're awake during the day, while you're getting your light exposure and moving through your morning, there's something else that helps, some movement. Not intense exercise necessarily. Not a grueling workout that leaves you depleted. Just movement. Activity. Getting your body engaged. This could be a walk. Some gentle stretching. A bit of yoga. Playing with your kids or your dog. Cleaning your house. Gardening. Anything that gets you up and moving rather than sitting still. Movement does a few helpful things for sleep. It uses energy, which helps build that sleep drive we talked about. It reduces stress and anxiety by burning off cortisol. It increases feel-good neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, which can improve your mood during the day and help your brain function better. And interestingly, movement in the morning or early afternoon seems to be particularly helpful for sleep. It doesn't have to be intense. It just has to happen. The timing matters, though. You want to avoid vigorous exercise too close to bedtime, because that can actually increase arousal and make it harder to sleep. But movement earlier in the day, that sets you up well. So morning light, some gentle movement, and a consistent wake time. These are the foundation, the building blocks of better sleep, starting from the moment you wake up. But there's one more thing we need to talk about when it comes to the daytime, and it's a tricky one for many dolphins. Naps. Oh, naps. The tempting, seemingly necessary, often backfiring naps. If you're a dolphin, you probably have a complicated relationship with napping. You're exhausted during the day because you didn't sleep well at night. Your body is screaming for rest. And so you lie down for a nap, hoping it will help you feel better and get through the rest of the day. Sometimes it does help. Sometimes you wake up from a 20-minute nap, feeling a bit more refreshed, a bit more capable. But other times you sleep for an hour, or 2 or 3. Or you can't fall asleep at all, which is frustrating and adds to your stress. Or you do fall asleep, but wake up groggy and disoriented, and somehow more tired than before. And then, that night, you lie down at your regular bedtime and nothing. You can't fall asleep, because you already slept during the day. You already released some of that sleep drive. And now there's not enough left to carry you into nighttime sleep. This is the nap paradox for dolphins. You need them because you're tired, but they can make your nighttime sleep even worse. So what do? The general recommendation, and this is going to be hard to hear, is to avoid long or late naps. If you absolutely must nap, if you truly can't function without it, keep it short. 20 to 30 minutes maximum. That's enough to give you a small boost of alertness without dropping into deep sleep, which is what causes that groggy feeling when you wake up. And keep it early, before mid-afternoon, ideally before 1 or 2 in the evening, because napping later than that, it starts to interfere with your nighttime sleep drive. It's too close to bedtime. The ideal scenario, the goal to work toward, is not needing to nap at all. To build up your sleep drive throughout the entire day, letting it accumulate, so that by bedtime it's strong enough to help you actually fall asleep. But that's a goal, not a requirement, and certainly not something to beat yourself up about if you can't achieve it yet. If you need to nap right now, if that's what gets you through the day, then nap. But be strategic about it, short and early, and pay attention to whether it's actually helping or making things worse. Over time, as your nighttime sleep improves, as you start sleeping a bit more deeply, a bit more consistently, the daytime exhaustion will lessen. The need for naps will decrease, and you'll be able to save all that sleep drive for nighttime where it belongs. But for now, just do your best. Wake up at the same time. Get some light. Move your body a little. Be careful with naps. These aren't glamorous interventions. They're not exciting or dramatic. They won't fix everything overnight. But they're foundational. They're the scaffolding that supports better sleep. And for a dolphin brain, for a fragile circadian rhythm that needs all the help it can get, this scaffolding matters. So starting tomorrow morning, or whenever you wake up next, you can begin. you can start creating these patterns, these rhythms, these signals that help your brain understand when it's time to be awake and when it's time to rest. You're not just trying to sleep better. You're teaching your entire system, your circadian rhythm, your nervous system, your watchman brain, how to move through a 24-hour cycle in a way that supports rest. And that work, that patient, consistent daily work, it matters. It's setting you up for sleep, starting from the very first moment of your day. Start winding down sooner than expected. Let's talk about something that catches most dolphins by surprise. Something that goes against what feels natural, against what the rest of the world seems to be doing, against what you've probably been doing for years. It's about when you start preparing for sleep, when you begin the process of winding down, when you start shifting from the active, engaged, doing part of your day, to the quiet, restful, settling part. Most people think about bedtime as the moment they get into bed. That's when sleep preparation begins. You finish everything you need to do, maybe watch TV until 10:30 or 11, then brush your teeth, put on pajamas, and climb into bed. And for some people with strong sleep drives and stable circadian rhythms, that works fine. They can be fully engaged with life until 10:30, then switch off the lights and fall asleep by 11. But you're not one of those people. You're a dolphin. And for a dolphin, that approach doesn't work. Because remember, your problem isn't that you can't make yourself unconscious. Your problem is that your nervous system stays aroused. Your watchman brain stays activated. Your mind stays alert and engaged and busy. And you can't shift from full activation to deep rest in 30 minutes. You can't go from stimulation to sleep that quickly. Your brain needs time. More time than you probably think. More time than feels reasonable or convenient. Your brain needs to wind down gradually, slowly, gently, starting much earlier than bedtime. So here's what often works better for dolphins. You begin winding down in the late afternoon or early evening. Not at bedtime. Not an hour before bed. But hours before bed. Maybe around 5 or 6 in the evening. Maybe even earlier if your bedtime is 10 or 11. I know what you might be thinking. That's too early. That's ridiculous. Life doesn't work that way. You have things to do in the evening. Dinner to make, work to finish, emails to send, family to spend time with. And yes, you're right. You do have things to do. Life doesn't stop at 5 in the evening. But here's the subtle shift I'm suggesting. It's not that you stop doing things. It's that you start being more intentional about what kind of things you do and how you do them. Winding down doesn't mean going to bed. It doesn't mean lying in the dark doing nothing for 5 hours. It means gradually, progressively, shifting the quality of your activities from high-pressure, high-stimulus, arousing activities to low-pressure, low-stimulus, calming activities. Let me paint a picture of what this might look like. It's 5:30 in the evening. You're finishing up your workday, or you're getting home from work, or you're wrapping up whatever your afternoon involved. This is the moment. This is when you start making different choices. Instead of immediately checking your email one more time, or diving into a complex project, or starting an intense conversation, you pause. You shift gears. Maybe you change your clothes. Put on something comfortable. Something soft. This is a signal to your body. The doing part of the day is ending. The being part is beginning. Maybe you make some tea. Not coffee. Caffeine at this hour is working against you. But something warm and soothing. Herbal tea. The ritual of making it, holding the warm cup, sipping slowly. It's calming. Maybe you take a short walk outside. Not a power walk, not exercise exactly. Just a gentle stroll. Fresh air. Movement. Transition. These small acts, they're telling your nervous system that something is changing, that the pace is slowing, that you're moving toward rest. Then, as the evening continues, you keep choosing activities that maintain or deepen this sense of calm. You make dinner, but you do it without rushing, without stress. You're not trying to create a perfect meal while simultaneously answering texts and thinking about tomorrow's meetings. You're just cooking, chopping vegetables, stirring a pot, present with what you're doing. You eat slowly. You taste your food. You're not scrolling through your phone or watching intense news while you eat. You're just eating. After dinner, instead of diving back into work or checking your email or engaging with stressful content, you choose something gentle. Maybe you read a book, a physical book, not a screen. Something light, something pleasant, not something that's going to activate your mind or trigger strong emotions. Maybe you do a simple, quiet task. Folding laundry, organizing a drawer, watering plants. Something with your hands, something rhythmic and repetitive and soothing. Maybe you spend time with family, but in a low-key way. Playing a calm game, talking gently, sitting together, not debating, not problem-solving, not dealing with difficult topics. The key is this: every choice you make, from late afternoon onward, is moving in the direction of less stimulation, less pressure, less arousal. You're not trying to be productive anymore. You're not trying to accomplish big things or solve complex problems. You're winding down, gradually, steadily, gently. And this is where consistency becomes really important. Your brain loves patterns. It learns from repetition. And when you do the same things in the same order every evening, when you create a consistent pre-sleep routine, your brain starts to recognize the pattern. It starts to understand, oh, we're doing this thing, which means the next thing is coming, which means eventually we're heading towards sleep. It's like a runway for an airplane. You need distance to slow down, to descend, to land safely. You can't just drop out of the sky. Your brain needs that same gradual approach, and a consistent routine provides it. So maybe your routine looks like this. At 6 o'clock, you change into comfortable clothes. At 6:30, you make tea. At 7, you make and eat dinner slowly. At 8, you do something gentle with your hands or read for a while. At 9, you start your actual bedtime routine. Brushing teeth, washing face, dimming lights. The specific activities don't matter as much as the consistency. Same things, same order, every night. Your brain learns the sequence, and each step becomes a cue for the next step, a signal that you're moving closer to sleep. This is incredibly powerful for a watchman brain, because your brain is always scanning for patterns, looking for predictability. When you give it a predictable pattern, when you make the path to sleep clear and consistent, it can relax a little. It knows what's coming. It doesn't have to stay quite so vigilant. Now, as you're moving through your evening, there's something else that matters tremendously: what you protect yourself from. Because there are certain activities, certain types of content, certain kinds of interactions that can undo all the winding down you've been doing, that can spike your arousal right back up and leave you unable to sleep for hours. The last 60 to 90 minutes before bed. This time is precious. This is the final stretch, the last part of the runway, and you need to protect it. No work during this time. None. Not even just checking one email. Not even just finishing one small task. Because work activates your problem-solving brain. It engages your analytical mind. It creates a sense of responsibility and pressure. And even if the task itself is small, even if it only takes 5 minutes, it can activate your nervous system in a way that takes hours to settle down again. Work can wait until tomorrow. It really can. Whatever it is, it's not worth sacrificing your sleep. No arguments or difficult conversations during this time either. No bringing up sensitive topics with your partner. No trying to resolve conflicts or make important decisions. These interactions flood your system with stress hormones. They activate your fight or flight response. They leave you ruminating for hours afterward, replaying what was said, thinking about what you should have said, worrying about what it all means. Even if the conversation goes well, even if you resolve something, it's still arousing. It's still stimulating. And stimulation is exactly what you don't need right now. If something important needs to be discussed, have that conversation earlier in the day, or wait until tomorrow. But protect this evening time. Keep it calm. Keep it peaceful. And please, please, avoid intense news during this window. The world is full of things to worry about. Crises and disasters, and political conflicts, and frightening events. And if you're someone with a watchman brain, someone prone to anxiety and rumination, consuming this kind of content before bed is like pouring gasoline on a fire. You watch the news or scroll through headlines, and your brain lights up with concern, with fear, with worry about things you have no control over. And then you lie down to sleep, and all of that is still churning in your mind. You don't need to be uninformed. You don't need to ignore the world. But you can choose when you engage with it. And bedtime, the hours leading up to bedtime, that's not the time. Save the news for morning or afternoon, when your brain has time to process it and settle back down before sleep. The same goes for social media. Those endless scrolling feeds of content. Some upsetting, some enraging, some just mildly stimulating. They keep your brain in a state of partial activation. Always scanning. Always reacting. Always engaged. And the blue light from screens, it suppresses melatonin production. It tells your brain it's still daytime. It works directly against your sleep drive. So in that last 60 to 90 minutes, put the phone down. Turn off the computer. Step away from screens if you can, or at least switch to very low stimulation if you must use them. Read a paper book instead. Listen to something calm. Do something with your hands that doesn't require a screen. Give your brain permission to disengage, to stop processing, to stop reacting. Let it be quiet. Let it be still. This might feel boring. You might feel like you're missing out on something, like you should be doing more, staying connected, keeping up with everything. But what you're actually doing is taking care of yourself, is creating the conditions for rest, is giving your watchman brain the gift of a calm evening, so it can actually sleep when bedtime arrives. And here's the beautiful thing. When you do this consistently, when you protect your evenings, when you wind down gradually, when you create that predictable routine, sleep starts to become easier. Not perfect, not every night, but more often, more reliably, because you're not asking your brain to go from 60 miles per hour to 0 in an instant. You're not expecting it to shut off on command. You're giving it time, space, gentleness, a long, slow glide toward rest. And your watchman brain, that careful, vigilant part of you, it can work with that. It can learn that pattern. It can begin to trust that this slow winding down is leading somewhere safe, somewhere restful, somewhere it can finally let go, taming racing thoughts directly. Now we come to the heart of it, the thing that probably keeps you awake more than anything else. Not the noise outside, not the uncomfortable mattress, not even the weak sleep drive or the fragmented sleep patterns. The racing thoughts, those relentless, persistent, unstoppable thoughts that arrive the moment your head hits the pillow, that circle and spiral and multiply in the darkness, that keep your mind busy even when your body is exhausted. This is the watchman brain doing what it does best: thinking, analyzing, planning, worrying, trying to solve problems and anticipate threats and keep you safe. But it's 2 in the morning, and there's nothing that actually needs solving right now. Nothing that requires your immediate attention. Nothing you can do about any of it until tomorrow. And yet, the thoughts keep coming. So let's talk about how to work with this. How to tame the racing thoughts. Not eliminate them completely. That's probably not realistic. But reduce them. Soften them. Make them less powerful. Less consuming. Let's start with something that sounds almost too simple to work, but is surprisingly effective. Scheduling worry time. Here's how it works. Earlier in the evening, sometime between 5 and 8, well before bed, you set aside 15 or 20 minutes specifically for worrying. That's right. You give yourself permission. Actually, you give yourself a designated time to worry on purpose. You sit down with a piece of paper and a pen, and you write down everything that's on your mind, everything you're worried about, everything that needs to be done, everything that's bothering you. You don't censor yourself. You don't judge what comes up. You just write it all down. Every anxious thought, every nagging concern, every item on your mental to-do list. Work project deadlines. That conversation you keep replaying. The bills you need to pay. The appointment you need to schedule. The thing you're afraid you forgot. The decision you can't make. The person you're worried about. All of it. On paper. Out of your head and onto something tangible. And here's the important part. For each worry, each concern, each item, you write down one small next step. Just one. The very next thing you could do about it. Not the entire solution. Not a complete action plan. Just the next step. Worried about the work project? Next step. Send an email to your colleague asking for clarification. Can't stop replaying that conversation? Next step. Decide tomorrow whether you need to follow up with that person or let it go. Bills need paying? Next step. Check your account balance in the morning. Appointment to schedule? Next step. Call the office first thing when they open. You're not solving everything. You're just acknowledging it, naming it, and identifying one concrete action that gives your brain a sense of direction. This does something really important for your watchman brain. Your brain keeps bringing up these worries at night because it's trying to make sure you don't forget them. It's trying to protect you from dropping important balls. It's scanning for anything that might need attention. But when you've already written everything down, when you've already identified next steps, your brain doesn't need to keep reminding you. The information is captured. The plan exists. It's not going to be forgotten. And so later, when you're lying in bed and a worry tries to surface, you can gently remind yourself, I already wrote that down. I have a next step. I'll handle it tomorrow during my actual worry time. Right now I'm sleeping. This doesn't make the thought disappear instantly, but it makes it less urgent, less demanding, easier to release, because you've given your brain what it needed, acknowledgement and a plan. Now, even with scheduled worry time, thoughts are still going to show up at night. That's just how the mind works, especially a watchman mind. So you need a way to work with thoughts when they arrive, a way to relate to them that doesn't give them more power. Here's a technique that helps: labeling. When a thought appears, when your mind starts racing down a familiar path, you simply notice it and give it a gentle label. Planning. What if? Replay. Worrying. You're not trying to stop the thought. You're not fighting it or pushing it away. You're just naming what your mind is doing. A thought comes up about tomorrow's meeting. You notice it. You mentally whisper to yourself, planning. A thought comes up about something that could go wrong. You notice it. What if? A thought replays a conversation from today. Replay. That's it. Just a soft, neutral label. Like you're a scientist observing your own mind with curiosity rather than judgment. This simple act, this gentle labeling, it creates a tiny bit of space between you and the thought. It reminds you that you are not your thoughts. You're the awareness that notices thoughts. And in that small space, you have a choice. You can follow the thought. Engage with it. Let it pull you into the full story, the full worry spiral, the full analysis. Or you can let it drift by, like a cloud passing through the sky. Notice it, label it, and return your attention to something else. Something neutral, something calm, something that doesn't activate your mind. This is called an anchor, a place to rest your attention when thoughts try to pull it away. Your anchor could be your breath, just the sensation of breathing in and breathing out. Not controlling it, not making it special, just noticing it, feeling it, following its natural rhythm. Or your anchor could be physical sensations in your body. The weight of your head on the pillow, the feeling of the blanket against your skin, the softness beneath you. Or your anchor could be a simple word or phrase that you repeat gently. Rest, peace, safe, calm, not with effort or force, just a quiet whisper in your mind. The anchor doesn't make thoughts stop, but it gives you somewhere to return your attention when thoughts pull it away. Thought appears. You notice it. You label it. Planning. And then you gently guide your attention back to your breath, to your body, to your word. Thought appears again, because it will. You notice. You label. What if? You return to your anchor. Again, and again, and again. This isn't failure. This is the practice. This is how you train your mind to be less dominated by racing thoughts. Not by fighting them, not by forcing them to stop, but by patiently, gently, repeatedly choosing to place your attention somewhere calmer. Over time, maybe not tonight, maybe not next week, but over time, your brain learns. It starts to settle more quickly. The thoughts lose some of their grip. The space between you and your thoughts gets a little bit wider. And in that space, rest becomes possible. Now, sometimes thoughts alone aren't the only thing keeping you aroused. Sometimes your entire nervous system is activated. Your body is tense. Your breathing is shallow. Your heart might be beating a little faster than it should. This is physiological arousal, and you can address it directly with structured relaxation techniques. One of the most effective is slow breathing. Not deep breathing necessarily, not big, forced breaths that feel unnatural, but slow, gentle, elongated breaths. Breathing in for a count of 4, pausing for a moment, breathing out for a count of 6 or 7. The exhale is longer than the inhale. This is important because long exhales activate your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system. They signal safety. They tell your body it can relax. You can do this lying in bed, eyes closed, one hand on your belly if you like, feeling it rise and fall. Breathe in slowly through your nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pause. Breathe out slowly through your mouth or nose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pause. Again. You don't have to do this perfectly. You don't have to count exactly. You're just encouraging your breath to be a little slower, a little longer on the exhale, a little more calming. After several minutes of this, maybe 5, maybe 10, your heart rate starts to slow, your muscles start to soften, your nervous system begins to downshift from arousal to calm. Another technique that works well for many people is progressive muscle relaxation. This is where you systematically tense and release different muscle groups, one at a time, moving through your entire body. You might start with your toes. Curl them tight. Hold for 5 seconds. Then release completely. Notice the difference between tension and relaxation. Then your calves. Tighten. Hold. Release. Your thighs. Tighten. Hold. Release. Your buttocks, your stomach, your chest, your shoulders, your arms, your hands, your neck, your jaw, your face. One area at a time. Tense deliberately. Then let go completely. This does 2 things. First, it gives your mind something to focus on besides racing thoughts. A task, a structure, something to do. And second, it releases tension you didn't even know you were holding. Most of us carry stress in our bodies without realizing it. Our shoulders are tight. Our jaw is clenched. Our hands are in fists. By deliberately tensing and releasing, you're teaching your body what true relaxation feels like. You're giving it permission to let go. These techniques, worry time, labeling thoughts, returning to an anchor, slow breathing, progressive muscle relaxation. They're tools. Options. Things you can try when your mind is racing and your body won't settle. You don't have to do all of them. You don't have to do them perfectly. You just need to find 1 or 2 that resonate with you, that feel manageable, that you can practice consistently. Because that's what this is. Practice. Your watchman brain has been racing for years, maybe decades. It has deep, well-worn pathways to anxiety and overthinking and vigilance. You're not going to undo all of that in one night, but you can start creating new pathways. Pathways. Pathways to rest. One night at a time. One practice session at a time. One gentle return to your breath at a time. The racing thoughts will still come, but they'll have less power, less urgency, less ability to keep you trapped in wakefulness. Because you'll have skills now, tools, ways of working with your mind that don't involve fighting or forcing or giving up. You'll have ways to tame the thoughts. Not eliminate them, but soften them. Make them less consuming. And in that softening, in that gentleness, sleep can find you. Not because you've conquered your mind, but because you've learned to work with it, to be patient with it, to guide it gently toward rest. So tonight, or whenever you need it, you can try these things. You can experiment. You can see what helps. And you can know that every time you practice, every time you label a thought and return to your breath, every time you breathe slowly and release tension from your body, you're training your watchman brain, teaching it that it's safe to be calmer, that it doesn't always have to race. That rest is possible, and gradually, gently, patiently, it will start to believe you. A simple in-bed reset ritual. Now, let's put it all together. Let's create a simple practice you can do right here, right now, lying in your bed. This is a reset ritual, something you can return to whenever your mind is racing, whenever your body feels tense, whenever sleep feels impossibly far away. It's not complicated. It doesn't require any special equipment or knowledge. It's just you, your breath, and your body, working together to find calm. We're going to spend the next several minutes doing this together, moving slowly, breathing gently, releasing tension piece by piece. If you're comfortable doing so, go ahead and settle into your bed now. Find a position that feels relatively comfortable. You don't have to be perfectly still. You can adjust whenever you need to. Let your eyes close if they haven't already, or soften your gaze if keeping them closed doesn't feel right. Just be here, in this moment, in this bed, in this body. We're going to start with the breath, because breath is always available to you. Always happening, always present, and it's one of the most powerful tools you have for calming your nervous system. So let's bring our attention to breathing. You don't need to change anything yet. Just notice. Notice the natural rhythm of your breath right now. Is it fast or slow? Shallow or deep? Smooth or a little jagged? There's no right answer. Just notice what's true. Now, we're going to gently guide the breath into a calming pattern. We're going to make the exhale longer than the inhale, because long exhales, they tell your body it's safe. They activate rest. Here's how it works. We'll breathe in through the nose for about 4 seconds, not counting rigidly, just a gentle rhythm. And then we'll breathe out for about 6 seconds. A little bit longer, a little bit slower. Let's try it together. Breathe in through your nose, 2, 3, 4. And breathe out slowly, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good. Again. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. And out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Beautiful. One more time. In, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now you can continue at your own pace. You don't need to count if you don't want to. Just let your breath be slow, gentle, with the exhale a little longer than the inhale. Keep breathing like this as we move through the rest of the practice. Now we're going to add progressive muscle relaxation. We're going to move through your body, starting at your feet and working upward. And for each area, we'll gently tense the muscles, hold for just a moment, and then release completely. The key is the contrast, the difference between tension and relaxation. Because when you deliberately tense and then let go, your muscles can relax more deeply than they could if you just tried to relax without the tension first. So let's begin. Bring your attention down to your feet. Both feet. Your toes. The arches. The heels. On your next inhale, gently curl your toes. Tighten the muscles in your feet. Not painfully, just enough to feel the tension. Hold it. And now release. Let go completely. Feel your feet soften. Notice the difference. Notice how relaxation feels after tension. Continue breathing slowly. In for 4. Out for 6. Now bring your attention to your calves. The muscles in your lower legs. On your next inhale, gently flex your feet toward your shins. Feel your calf muscles engage and tighten. Hold. And release. Let your feet relax back to neutral. Let your calves soften completely. Feel the tension draining away. Keep breathing. Slow and steady. Moving up to your thighs. The large muscles in your upper legs. Inhale, and gently squeeze your thigh muscles. Tighten them. Feel the tension. Hold, and let go. Release completely. Let your thighs become heavy. Let them sink into the bed beneath you. Breathing slowly. In and out. Now your buttocks. Your glutes. Inhale, and gently squeeze. Tighten. Hold the tension. And release. Let everything soften. Let go completely. Notice your legs now. How they feel. Heavy, perhaps. Relaxed. Different than they did a few minutes ago. Bring your attention to your stomach. Your abdomen. Inhale, and gently pull your belly button toward your spine. Tighten your abdominal muscles. Hold, and release. Let your belly be soft. Let it rise and fall naturally with your breath. Continue breathing. Slowly, calmly. Now your chest. Your ribcage. Inhale deeply, expanding your chest. Feel it tighten. Hold, and exhale completely. Let your chest relax. Let your breath return to that gentle rhythm. In for 4. Out for 6. Moving to your hands. Make gentle fists. Inhale, and squeeze your hands closed. Tighten. Hold the tension. And release. Open your hands. Let your fingers uncurl. Let them be completely relaxed. Feel the difference. Now your arms. Your forearms and upper arms. Inhale, and gently tense all the muscles in your arms. You might bend your arms slightly, engaging the muscles. Hold, and let go. Let your arms become heavy. Let them rest wherever they are. Completely relaxed. Keep breathing. Bring your attention to your shoulders. This is where so many of us hold tension without even realizing it. Inhale, and gently lift your shoulders toward your ears. Squeeze them up. Feel the tension. Hold, and let them drop. Release completely. Feel them fall away from your ears. Feel the space that creates. The softness. Breathe into that softness. Now your neck. Gently, carefully. We're not forcing anything here. Inhale, and press your head back into your pillow just slightly. Feel the muscles in the back of your neck engage. Hold, and release. Let your head rest naturally. Let your neck be soft. Moving to your face. Your jaw. So much tension lives here. Inhale, and gently clench your jaw. Press your teeth together. Feel the tightness. Hold, and release. Let your jaw fall open slightly. Let there be space between your teeth. Let your tongue rest softly in your mouth. Notice how different that feels. Now your eyes and forehead. Inhale, and gently squeeze your eyes shut. Wrinkle your forehead. Tighten all those small muscles. Hold, and release. Smooth your forehead. Soften your eyes. Let your whole face be peaceful. relaxed. Now, take a moment to scan through your entire body, from your feet all the way up to your head. Notice what you feel. Notice the heaviness, the softness, the relaxation. Your body has released so much tension. It's resting now, truly resting. And your breath, still flowing slowly, still calm. In for 4, out for 6. This is your reset ritual. This is what you can return to whenever you need it. Whenever your mind is racing and sleep feels impossible, you can come back to this. Back to your breath. Back to your body. Back to this practice of gentle tensing and releasing. You can do the whole sequence like we just did. Or you can focus on just 1 or 2 areas where you're holding the most tension. Your shoulders, your jaw, whatever needs attention. The practice is yours. You can shape it to fit what you need in any given moment. And the more you practice this, the more familiar your body becomes with this state of deep relaxation, the easier it becomes to access it. The quicker you can shift from tension to calm. Your nervous system learns. It remembers. It starts to recognize this pattern, this feeling, this state, and over time, this becomes your pathway to sleep. Not forcing, not struggling, just breathing, releasing, softening, allowing. So for now, just continue resting here. Continue breathing slowly. Continue noticing the heaviness of your body, the softness, the calm. There's nothing you need to do, nowhere you need to be, nothing you need to figure out or fix or solve. You can just be. Right here, right now, in this moment. Your watchman brain has permission to rest. Your body has released its tension. Your breath is calm and steady. Everything is exactly as it should be. And if sleep comes, wonderful. Let it come. And if it doesn't come right away, that's okay too. You're still resting, still calming your nervous system, still doing exactly what you need to be doing. There's no pressure, no expectation, no timeline, just breath, body, presence, calm. Keep breathing, keep resting, keep allowing. You're safe, you're supported, you're exactly where you need to be. And your watchman brain, after standing guard for so long, it can finally rest. Breaking the thinking in bed loop. There's something that happens when you struggle with sleep night after night after night. Your bed, the place that should be associated with rest and comfort and peace, it starts to become associated with something else entirely. It becomes the place where you lie awake, the place where your mind races, the place where you feel frustrated and anxious and trapped in wakefulness. Your brain creates an association, a learned pattern. Bed equals struggle. Bed equals thinking. Bed equals insomnia. And once that association is formed, once your brain has linked your bed with wakefulness instead of sleep, it becomes a self-fulfilling cycle. You get into bed, and your brain automatically shifts into alert mode, even if you're tired, even if you want to sleep, because the bed itself has become a trigger for arousal rather than relaxation. This is one of the cruelest aspects of chronic insomnia. The very place you need to rest becomes the place where rest feels most impossible. But here's the good news. Learned associations can be unlearned. Patterns can be changed. And there's a specific, evidence-based approach for doing exactly this. It's called CBT-I, Cognitive Behavioral Therapy for Insomnia. And it's one of the most effective treatments for the kind of sleep struggles dolphins experience. We're going to talk about some of the core principles of CBT-I, not as a complete treatment program, but as concepts you can start working with on your own. The first principle is simple but powerful. Reserve your bed only for sleep and sex. That's it. Those two things. Nothing else. No scrolling through your phone in bed. No watching TV in bed. No working in bed. No eating in bed. No problem solving or planning or worrying in bed. Your bed is for sleep and intimacy. And that's all. I know this might sound extreme. Maybe your bed is where you like to read, where you catch up on shows, where you relax at the end of the day. But if you're struggling with sleep, if your brain has learned to associate your bed with wakefulness, then you need to retrain that association. You need to teach your brain that bed means sleep. Period. So all those other activities, the ones that keep your mind engaged and alert, they need to happen somewhere else. On the couch, in a chair, at the kitchen table, anywhere but bed. This creates a clear boundary, a clear signal. When you get into bed, your brain starts to learn. Oh, this is the sleep place. This is where we rest. This is what we do here. It won't happen overnight. Your brain won't immediately forget the old associations. But with consistency, with repetition, the new association gets stronger, and the old one gets weaker. Bed becomes a cue for sleep again instead of a cue for wakefulness. Now, here's the second principle, and this one is harder. This one requires discipline and trust, especially on difficult nights. If you're lying in bed, awake, and your mind is spinning, if you've been there for 15 or 20 minutes and sleep clearly isn't coming, you get up. Yes, you get out of bed. I know this feels counterintuitive. You're tired. You want to sleep. The last thing you want to do is get up and leave the comfort of your bed. But here's what happens when you lie there, awake, thinking, ruminating, getting more and more frustrated. You're reinforcing that association. You're teaching your brain that the bed is a place for lying awake, for struggling, for mental spinning. And the longer you lie there, the stronger that association becomes. So instead, when you notice you've been awake for 15 or 20 minutes, and your mind is clearly not settling, you get up. You leave the bedroom if you can. You go to another room, somewhere dim, somewhere quiet, somewhere boring, and you do something boring, not something stimulating, not something on a screen that will blast blue light into your eyes and activate your brain even more, not something engaging or entertaining, something genuinely boring. You might read something dull, an old magazine, a manual for an appliance, something that doesn't grip your attention. You might do a simple, repetitive task, folding some laundry, organizing a drawer, something with your hands that requires minimal thought. You might just sit quietly in dim light, not meditating, not trying to force relaxation, just sitting, being, waiting. The key is this: you stay up until you actually feel sleepy, not just tired, sleepy. That specific feeling when your eyelids are heavy, when your body wants to lie down, when sleep feels genuinely close. And then, only then, you return to bed. This does several important things. First, it prevents you from lying in bed awake, which breaks that negative association we talked about. Second, it gives your body a chance to build up more sleep drive. The longer you're awake, the stronger the biological pressure to sleep becomes. And third, It reinforces the idea that bed is for sleeping, not for lying awake. You only go there when you're actually ready to sleep. This can be hard to do, especially at 3 in the morning when you're exhausted and frustrated, and the last thing you want is to get out of your warm bed and sit in a chair reading something boring. But the research is clear. This works. Consistently, reliably, over time. This breaks the thinking in bed loop. It retrains your brain. It restores the bed as a place for sleep. You might need to get up multiple times in one night at first. That's okay. That's part of the process. You're not failing. You're retraining. And gradually, as the association strengthens, as your brain learns the new pattern, you'll find yourself needing to get up less and less. Because when you do get into bed, sleep will come more readily. Now, these two principles, keeping the bed only for sleep and getting up when you're not sleeping, they're part of a larger framework called stimulus control. It's one component of CBT-I. There are other components too. Sleep restriction, where you actually limit the time you spend in bed to match the amount you're actually sleeping, which sounds cruel, but is remarkably effective. Cognitive restructuring, where you work on the thoughts and beliefs about sleep that create anxiety and arousal. A full CBT-I program is structured, systematic, usually guided by a trained therapist who can personalize it to your specific situation. And the research shows that for people with Dolphin-style insomnia, for people with chronic, fragmented sleep and racing thoughts and hyperarousal, CBT-I is incredibly effective, often more effective than medication, with longer-lasting results, because it's not just treating symptoms. It's addressing the underlying patterns, the learned associations, the behaviors and thoughts that perpetuate insomnia. It gives you tools, skills, a framework for understanding and working with your sleep difficulties. If you've been struggling with sleep for a long time, if what you've tried so far hasn't been enough, I want to encourage you to look into CBT-I. There are online programs available, apps, books, and of course, working with a trained therapist who specializes in sleep. It requires commitment. It requires consistency. And it can be challenging, especially in the beginning when you're implementing rules like getting out of bed when you're not sleeping. But it works. For dolphins. For watchman brains. For people who've struggled for years and thought nothing would ever help. CBT-I works. In the meantime, even before you start a formal program, you can begin implementing these basic principles. Keep your bed for sleep. Only sleep. When your mind starts using your bed as a thinking place, a worrying place, a problem-solving place, gently redirect those activities elsewhere. And when you find yourself lying awake, spinning, not sleeping, trust the process. Get up. Do something boring. Wait for true sleepiness. Then return to bed. It will feel strange at first. Unnatural. Like you're making things harder instead of easier. But you're not. You're retraining. You're breaking the old pattern and creating a new one. You're teaching your watchman brain that the bed is safe, that the bed is for rest, that when you lie down there, sleep is what happens. And over time, with patience and consistency, your brain will learn. The thinking in bed loop will weaken. The association between bed and wakefulness will fade. And the association between bed and sleep will grow stronger, until one day you'll realize that when you get into bed, your mind doesn't automatically start racing. Your body doesn't automatically tense up. Your anxiety about sleep doesn't automatically spike. Instead, you just lie down, get comfortable, breathe, and drift off, because your bed has become, once again, a place for sleep. Not a battleground, not a place of struggle, just a place to rest. And that's exactly what it should be. So if you need to get up right now, if you've been lying here listening and your mind is still too active, still too engaged, that's okay. You can get up. You can do something boring in dim light. You can wait for true sleepiness. There's no shame in it. No failure. You're just following the process, trusting the science, doing what works. And when sleepiness comes, when your body genuinely feels ready, you can return to bed and try again, because that's all any of this is. Just trying, practicing, learning, adjusting. Your sleep won't be perfect. Not every night. Maybe not ever. But it can be better. So much better. And you deserve that. You deserve a bed that feels safe. A mind that can quiet. Sleep that actually restores you. You deserve rest. Real deep, peaceful rest. And little by little, night by night, practice by practice, you're moving toward it. Build a bedroom that feels safe to sleep. We've talked about your mind, your nervous system, your patterns and practices, and the internal work of calming the watchman brain. But there's one more piece to this puzzle. One more element that can make a real difference in how well you sleep. And that's the space itself. The physical environment where you're trying to rest. Your bedroom. For most people, the bedroom is just a room. A place where the bed happens to be. They don't think too much about it. They can sleep in all kinds of conditions. But you're not most people. You're a dolphin. You have a watchman brain. And that brain is exquisitely sensitive to your environment. It notices everything. The temperature, the light, the sounds, the feeling of the sheets, the firmness of the mattress. Every small detail registers, gets processed, gets evaluated for potential threats or discomfort. And if your environment doesn't feel safe, if there are things that your brain perceives as disruptive or uncomfortable or alerting, it will keep you in that state of partial vigilance, that light sleep, that easily disrupted rest. So creating a bedroom environment that works with your watchman brain instead of against it, this matters. This can be the difference between fragmented sleep and deeper rest. Let's talk about how to do that. The first element is darkness. Deep, complete darkness. Your brain uses light as its primary signal for whether it's day or night. And even small amounts of light you might not consciously notice, can suppress melatonin production and keep your brain in a more wakeful state. The street light outside your window, the glow from your alarm clock, the little LED lights on electronics, the crack of light under your door, your phone screen if you check it during the night. All of these, they're telling your brain, it's not fully nighttime. We're not completely safe to be deeply asleep. So you want your bedroom to be dark. Really dark. The kind of dark where you can't see your hand in front of your face. Blackout curtains are worth the investment. Good ones that actually block light rather than just dimming it. Ones that fit snugly against your window frame, so light doesn't leak in around the edges. If you have electronics in your bedroom, alarm clocks, TVs, chargers with little lights, cover them or turn them away so you're not seeing any glow. Even those tiny LED indicators, can be enough to disrupt your sleep if you're sensitive. And your phone. Please, keep it face down if it's in the room at all. Better yet, keep it in another room entirely. Or at the very least, put it in a drawer where you can't see it. Because here's what happens when you can see your phone. You check it. Even if you don't mean to. Even if you tell yourself you won't. You wake up at 2 in the morning, and there it is, glowing softly on your nightstand. And you think, I'll just check the time. But then you see a notification, and you open it, and suddenly you're reading emails or news or messages, and your brain is flooded with blue light and information and activation. And sleep is gone for a while. So remove the temptation. Make your room dark, truly dark, and keep it that way all night. The second element is temperature. Your bedroom needs to be cool. Not cold, not uncomfortably chilly, but cool. Somewhere between 60 and 67 degrees Fahrenheit is ideal for most people. This isn't arbitrary. Your body temperature naturally drops as you move into sleep. It's part of the physiological process of falling asleep and staying asleep. And when your environment is too warm, it interferes with that natural cooling. Your body can't regulate its temperature properly. You might feel too hot. Kick off blankets. Then too cold. Pull them back on. Then too hot again. This constant adjustment, it keeps you in lighter sleep, keeps you partially awake and aware. But in a cool room, your body can relax, can release heat, can settle into that lower temperature that supports deep sleep. So turn down your thermostat at night. Open a window if it's cool outside. Use a fan if you need air circulation. Make your room cooler than feels comfortable when you're awake and dressed. Because when you're under blankets, in your pajamas, your body still, that coolness will feel perfect, conducive to rest. And if your partner prefers warmth, well, that's what extra blankets are for. You can be cool while they're warm. You can each have your own layers. But the ambient room temperature, that should be cool. The third element is quiet, or at least consistent sound. This is tricky for dolphins because you're so sound sensitive. The smallest noise can wake you. A car door outside, the house settling, your partner's breathing, the refrigerator cycling on. Ideally, your bedroom would be completely silent. But that's not realistic for most people. You can't control the outside world. You can't stop your neighbors from living their lives. You can't eliminate every possible sound. So instead, you create consistent sound. Predictable sound. Sound that masks the unpredictable sounds. White noise. Pink noise. Brown noise. The steady hum of a fan. A sound machine. Something that creates a consistent auditory blanket that covers up those sudden, jarring noises that would otherwise wake you. Your brain can learn to tune out consistent sound. It becomes background, non-threatening, but sudden, unexpected sounds. Those trigger your watchman brain. Those get flagged as potential threats. So by creating consistent sound, you're reducing the number of unexpected auditory triggers. You're making your environment more predictable, safer. Some people prefer pure white noise. Others find it harsh and prefer pink or brown noise, which have more bass. Others like nature sounds, rain, ocean waves, wind through trees. The specific type doesn't matter as much as finding something that works for you and using it consistently. Your brain will start to associate that sound with sleep. It will become part of your sleep cue, part of the pattern that says, we're in the sleep place now. We're safe to rest. Now, if sound sensitivity is a major issue for you, if you wake up to every small noise, even with white noise, you might also consider earplugs. Good ones, designed for sleeping, that are comfortable and don't fall out. They won't block everything, but they'll dampen sounds enough that minor noises won't wake you. And if you share your bed with a partner who moves a lot during the night, if their movements wake you up, this is where your mattress matters. Motion isolation. That's the term. It means that when one person moves, the other person doesn't feel it. The movement doesn't transfer across the mattress. Memory foam tends to be good for this. Newer hybrid mattresses often have motion isolation features. It's worth researching if you're in the market for a new mattress. Because if you're being woken up multiple times a night by your partner's movements, if every time they roll over you're pulled out of sleep, that's fragmenting your rest in a way that's preventable. You can also consider separate blankets. Even if you share a bed, you each have your own blanket. This reduces the tugging and pulling that can disturb sleep. Some couples even sleep in separate beds or separate rooms when sleep quality is a serious issue. And there's no shame in that. Sleep is essential. If sleeping separately means you both sleep better, that's a gift to your relationship, not a failure. Now let's talk about clocks. Specifically, visible clocks. Clocks you can see from your bed. If you're a dolphin, if you struggle with sleep anxiety, having a clock visible is often a problem. Because what happens? You wake up at 2 in the morning. You look at the clock. You think, it's 2. I've been asleep for 3 hours. I have 4 more hours until I need to get up. I need to fall back asleep right now, or I won't get enough rest. And that thought, that calculation, that pressure, it spikes your anxiety. It activates your mind. And suddenly, falling back asleep becomes harder. Or you wake up at 4:30. Look at the clock. Think, I only have an hour and a half left. There's no point even trying to sleep now. And you lie there anxious and frustrated until your alarm goes off. The clock, the knowledge of what time it is, it creates time pressure, time anxiety, and that anxiety interferes with sleep. So here's the solution. Turn your clock around. Put it in a drawer. Cover the display. Make it so you can't see what time it is from your bed. If you need an alarm to wake up, that's fine. Set it, but then turn it away. Don't look at it during the night. When you wake up, and you will wake up because you're a dolphin, you won't know if it's 2 or 4 or 5 in the morning. And that's okay. That's actually helpful. Without the time information, you can't calculate how much sleep you've lost or how much time you have left. You can't create that pressure and anxiety. You can just notice you're awake. Practice your breathing. Do your muscle relaxation. Return to your anchor. And drift back off if sleep is ready to come. Or get up and do something boring if sleep clearly isn't coming. But without the time anxiety driving your decisions. This small change, making the clock invisible, it can reduce anxiety significantly for many people. All of these elements, darkness, coolness, consistent sound, motion isolation, no visible clocks, they create an environment that signals safety to your watchman brain. They remove stimuli, reduce unpredictability, create conditions that support rest rather than vigilance. Your bedroom becomes a sanctuary, a cave, a quiet, dark, cool, peaceful place that exists specifically for sleep. Not for scrolling or working or worrying. Just sleeping. And when you combine this safe environment with all the other practices we've talked about, the consistent wake time, the daytime light exposure, the evening wind down, the worry time, the breathing and muscle relaxation, the stimulus control. When you bring all of these pieces together, something shifts. Not overnight, not perfectly, but gradually, steadily, your sleep begins to improve. The fragmentation decreases. The depth increases. The racing thoughts quiet a bit. The hyperarousal softens. And you start to wake up feeling, not completely refreshed, maybe not yet, but better, more rested, more capable. Your mornings become a little easier. Your days a little clearer. Your evenings a little calmer. And your watchman brain, that vigilant, careful, protective part of you that's been standing guard for so long, it starts to trust. It starts to believe that maybe, just maybe, it's safe to rest more deeply, that the environment is secure, that the patterns are consistent, that sleep won't be a battle every single night. And in that trust, in that softening, true rest becomes possible. Not because you forced it, not because you conquered your insomnia through sheer willpower, but because you created the conditions, internal and external, that allowed your dolphin brain to finally feel safe enough to sleep. Closing takeaway. Before we part, before you drift into whatever rest awaits you tonight, I want to leave you with something important, something to carry with you, something to remember on the difficult nights and the easier ones alike. You are not broken. Let me say that again, because it's so easy to forget. So easy to believe otherwise after years of struggling with sleep. You are not broken. Your dolphin chronotype, your watchman brain, your light sleep and racing thoughts and fragmented rest. None of this means there's something wrong with you. It means you have a brain that's exceptionally alert, exceptionally aware, exceptionally attuned to your environment and to potential threats. This kind of brain, it has kept humans alive for millennia. Someone needed to be the light sleeper. Someone needed to notice the sounds in the night. Someone needed to stay partially vigilant while others slept deeply. In our evolutionary history, the watchman brain was essential. It was protective. It was valuable. The problem isn't that you have this kind of brain. The problem is that you're living in a modern world that doesn't require this level of vigilance anymore. But your brain hasn't quite gotten that message yet. Your nervous system is still operating as if threats are everywhere, as if you need to stay on guard, as if letting your guard down completely would be dangerous. But here's the truth. You're safe. Most of the time, in most situations, especially at night in your own bed. You're safe. The threats your brain is watching for, they're not really there. Not the way they once were. Not in a way that requires you to sacrifice your sleep. And this is what all of this has been about. Everything we've explored together tonight. All the practices and principles and techniques. It's not about forcing yourself to sleep. It's not about trying harder or doing more or fixing what's broken. It's about teaching your watchman brain, gently, patiently, consistently, that it's finally safe to stand down, that it doesn't need to maintain this constant state of alertness, that it can soften, that it can rest. That sleep, deep, restorative, healing sleep, is not a dangerous vulnerability, but a necessary restoration. This teaching, it happens slowly, through repetition, through practice, through creating patterns and environments and internal states that signal safety again and again and again. It happens when you wake at the same time every day, and your circadian rhythm starts to stabilize. It happens when you get morning light, and your brain learns when day begins and night ends. It happens when you wind down gradually in the evening, and your nervous system shifts from activation to calm. It happens when you schedule your worries earlier in the day, and your brain trusts that important things won't be forgotten. It happens when you label your racing thoughts and return to your breath, and you create space between yourself and your mental chatter. It happens when you tense and release your muscles, and your body remembers what true relaxation feels like. It happens when you keep your bed only for sleep, and that association between bed and rest grows stronger. It happens when you create a dark, cool, quiet environment, and your brain receives consistent signals that this is a safe place. Every single practice, every small choice, every moment of patience with yourself, it's all teaching, all sending the same message. It's safe. You can rest. You can let go. And your watchman brain, it's listening. It might not seem like it on the difficult nights. It might seem like nothing is changing, nothing is working. You're still just as stuck as you've always been. But change is happening. Slowly, beneath the surface, in ways you might not consciously notice yet. Your nervous system is learning. Pathways are forming. New associations are being created. And one day, maybe not tonight, maybe not next week, but one day, you'll realize that sleep came a little easier, that you woke up a little less, that the morning felt a little gentler, that the exhaustion wasn't quite so heavy. And those small improvements, they'll build. They'll accumulate. They'll grow into something more substantial. Not perfect sleep. Let's be honest about that. You're a dolphin. You'll probably always be a lighter sleeper than some people. You'll probably always be more sensitive to your environment. That's simply your nature. But better sleep? Deeper rest? More restorative nights? Fewer hours of lying awake in anxious rumination? Mornings where you feel somewhat refreshed instead of utterly depleted? Yes, absolutely. That's possible. That's achievable. That's what these practices are designed to create. And it's what you deserve. You deserve to wake up feeling rested. You deserve nights where sleep comes without a battle. You deserve a relationship with rest that doesn't feel like constant struggle and failure. You deserve to feel safe in your own bed, in your own mind, in your own body, and your watchman brain. That part of you that's been working so hard, trying so diligently to protect you, standing guard night after night after night. It deserves rest too. It's been on duty for so long. It's tired. It wants to stand down. It just doesn't quite know how yet. Doesn't quite trust that it's safe. So you're teaching it. With every practice. With every breath. With every moment of calm you create. You're showing it that there's another way. That vigilance isn't the only option. That rest is possible without danger. And slowly, gradually, gently, it's starting to believe you. This is the work. This is the journey. This is what it means to have a dolphin brain learning to swim in deeper, calmer waters. It's not about becoming someone different. It's not about erasing your nature or fundamentally changing who you are. It's about finding balance, finding peace, finding a way to honor your watchman brain's protective instincts, while also giving yourself the rest you desperately need. Both things can be true. You can be alert and aware, and also deeply rested. You can be sensitive and perceptive, and also calm and peaceful. You can have a mind that thinks deeply, and also knows how to be quiet. These aren't contradictions. They're just different modes, different states, and you're learning to move between them more fluidly. Activation when it's needed, rest when it's possible, and the wisdom to know which is appropriate when. This is mastery, not of sleep itself. Sleep can't be mastered, but of your relationship with sleep, of your understanding of your own nervous system, of your ability to create the conditions where rest can happen. And you're developing this mastery right now, in this moment, as you lie here, breathing, listening, allowing. Every moment you spend in this calm state, every time you choose not to engage with racing thoughts, every time you soften instead of tense, you're building that mastery. You're becoming someone who understands their dolphin brain, who works with it instead of against it, who treats it with compassion instead of frustration. And that understanding, that compassion, it changes everything. So as this long night of listening comes to a close, as these words begin to fade in silence or sleep or simply quiet wakefulness takes their place, take this with you. You are not broken. Your brain is not defective. Your struggle is not a personal failure. You are simply a dolphin, a watchman, someone with a beautiful, alert, protective mind that needs to be taught, gently and patiently, that it's safe to rest. And you're doing that teaching, right now, with every breath, with every practice, with every moment of patience and self-compassion. The work is happening. The change is unfolding. The rest is coming, not because you're forcing it, but because you're finally allowing it. So allow. Keep allowing. Keep breathing. Keep softening. Keep trusting that your watchman brain can learn this new way of being. Because it can. And it will. And you will sleep again. Deeply. Peacefully. Restoratively. Not perfectly. Not every night. But enough. Better. More than you've known in a long time. This is what awaits you. This is what you're moving toward. This is the gift you're giving yourself by doing this work. So rest now. However that looks. However that feels. Your watchman has stood guard long enough. Tonight, just for tonight, it can rest. And so can you. You're safe. You're supported. You're exactly where you need to be. And sleep, whenever it comes, will be there to catch you. Good night, dear dolphin. Swim gently into those deeper waters. They're waiting for you. They've always been waiting for you. And they're safe. So very safe. Rest now. Just rest.